Expressing your love can look many different ways. And with the right jewelry gift from Blue Nile, it can truly sparkle. Blue Nile's collection of classic diamond jewelry makes for the kind of gift that speaks volumes without saying a single word. Or switch things up with a sapphire piece sure to spark conversation. Either way, Blue Nile's Diamond Guarantee ensures you get the highest quality at the best price. Express yourself with Blue Nile and get up to 30% off at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Hello, Paul. Good evening, sir, and welcome all to our monthly podcast now, our Football Books podcast with Andy Satchwell from myfootballbooks.com and me, Paul Collins. How are you? You all right?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm very well, actually. I'm quite happy with myself. I've just cooked a chicken tikka masala. So,
fabulous.
Yeah, I'll get in that kitchen, open a bottle of wine and start to create. You are a connoisseur of books, sir. We are going to be talking for an hour of football books. You're going to be the lead. I'm going to be your stooge. And when you mention a book that I've duplicated, i.e. I've liked what you've said, I'm going to say snap. So I'm going to say, before we start, is there a book that you're going to mention tonight that you would say, Paul would say snap with that book? I'll give the first dibs.
Oh, I think there might be, yes. Yeah, I think there could be a couple.
Let's get the first...
Should I go straight off?
Yeah, let's get the first one out as a snap. What you think a snap will be, and then we'll take the lead from there.
Let's go for Ian Storymore.
Absolutely spot on. Bang, snap. We will be talking about Storymore later, because I've done a couple of podcasts with the legend.
Brilliant.
And we will talk in more depth about Ian Storymore and how you can access the podcasts that we've done with him. First of all, I want to talk about your newsletter that's just recently come out, and also how people can link up with you via your Patreon site.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for that. So, I do a monthly newsletter, which pretty much share in terms of what the latest releases are out at the moment, and then obviously what books are coming out soon, which is what's going to take up most of this podcast that we'll talk about. And October is a bumper month, to say the least, in terms of new releases. The website, it's the largest football book-only website in the world. My www.myfootballbooks.com. You can connect with me via Twitter, via Facebook, I have a Patreon as well, which is aimed at both readers, authors, and publishers. So to give a reader a Patreon for just £2 a month, you're helping to support me and the work that I do. We're really promoting reading and football books in general, so helping authors as well spread the word. So, and you do get a complimentary My Football bookmark. So I'm hoping you've got one, Paul. I can't remember if I've ever sent you one. If I've not, I'll make sure I do that after this.
You know where my bookmark is. It's on about page 270 of Granddad, What Was Football Like in the 70s. I've also got one of your iconic mugs as well. And I am a patron of yours, as you are a Patreon with our football book projects. We're not just football book, but our football project that we do My Life, My Music with Alan Hudson. We do The Current View with Terry Curran, Legends of the 70s, our football book corner, and many, many others, including Game of My Life with players of the 70s and early 80s that we hook up with, and they talk about one of their favourite games that they've ever played in, as is all the patreon.com/SRB media. So I think we've got that out in the open. And guys, it is great, because when you do link up and when you do pay to our Patreon site, it does make a difference. We all do work very, very hard in trying to give you the best quality of podcast that we can possibly be. I always say to Chris, we're not the BBC, and we have got full-time jobs as well. Birmingham City are just kicking off against West Bromwich Albion. Looks as though it's fireworks night and no one's turned up because the top and the bottom of the Tilton, there's still no seats in there. So it really is a weird atmosphere. I was at Villa Park last night.
It looks weird when you see it on the telly.
Yeah, Villa Park was fantastic last night. So let's get kicking off. And what have you got? I also subscribe to When Saturday Comes and Back Pass. So I'm going to be looking at what books that they have also in there. They just call it books. They've got no book corner, but that's in When Saturday Comes. But in Back Pass magazine, it's Bookshelf by John Cully. So it would be great if we could link up with these guys, as it would be great if we could link up with some of the publishers, Pitch being the main one. And I'm guessing there's going to be a number of Pitch publications that you're going to be talking away. So the floor is yours, sir.
There will be. I'm going to just add to that as well, in terms of what you said about the introduction. So in terms of the patrons as well, it does really help. So, and the aim of, so the website that I'll run, there is obviously a cost to running it, etc. And, what your support helps just to continue doing that. And then effectively, I get a lot of people approaching me about football books that's coming up and how we could promote them. And that's really what I do, really, to support them as well. So, and on that, anyone wants to reach out, if you've got a book coming up, then let us know. But what I will say is October is, I've never known it so busy. Definitely, there's over 40 books that I know of that's due out in October. It's by far the busiest month I've ever known, which is incredible and covering such a wide range. But I'm going to kick off, though, with a book that's come out. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Ones that's come out in September, and then ones that are due to come out in the coming month as we're speaking. And the first one I'm going to kick off with is called Connecting the Continent.
Snap.
By Snap. Excellent. Well, we started well, haven't we, here, Paul? I thought this might grab your attention as well. Yeah. So Gavin H. McPhee, it's his first book as well, and a cracking book as well. Connecting the Continent. It's about the birth of the European Cup and the football's golden age. So cracking read. It's just a humble beginnings of the European Cup. But I actually like the way it's written. He talks very much about how football began. When you think of like Queen's Park, and it began in Scotland and England and the FA Cup, and there's references to some of the great coaches through the time, from Jimmy Hogan. Then it talks about the Mitropa Cup. There's a book recently come out by a guy called Joe Raff, and then it moves on into the European Cup, and it covers the early years from 1955 up to 1969, and it purposely does that as well. So to pick up a particular area when there was so much change, so it covers each of those seasons, and just remarkable in terms of what it went through in those periods. And just to pick out a couple of bits from the book itself. Well, you think of you'll probably know that from the first start, you've got, for the first few years, I think it's 4 on the trot, but Real Madrid.
5. Yeah, 5 on the spin.
5, is it 5? Sorry,
5 on the spin, Madrid,
Yeah, and that was down to, as it talks about here, one of the main reasons for that was, as he writes here, Bernabeu's original Galactico was the great Alfredo Di Stefano.
Yeah, Alberto. Yeah, Argentinian, played for Argentina, Colombia and Spain. And the great, of course, Ferenc Puskas, Francisco Gento played in that team. They were a fabulous team that were the pioneers. I mean, before anybody started, they'd won 5 European Cups. And fondly remembered to this day, and rightly so. I love these books of historical content. When you look at Joe Raff's book, Mitropa Cup, then you look at Connecting the Continent by Gavin H. McPhee. So you've got really the birth of the concept of a cup that's been played in Europe, and then all the way up to really the beginning of, for me, the golden decade, those halcyon days of football, the 70s. So I'm very much looking forward to Gavin, if you haven't written a book about the 70s of the European Cup, very much looking forward to that. But Stephen Scragg has also written a book about the European Cup while we're still talking of European Cup. So you've got 3 great books about
Yeah.
the birth of top flight football in Europe, haven't you?
Oh no, amazing! Stephen Gregg's wrote a trilogy of those books as well on European football, which fantastic. But yeah, this one I love the way he purposely finishes off actually just before Ajax come into it. You know, in the total football, etc. in the early 1970s.
Yes.
But again, it's just things out here you forget about. Actually, I like the quote in here. Actually, it says in here about how much it did change, and that's why he picks on the first. The early part of the European Cup. So the 1950s, he puts it was a defining time for the game. It was a decade. There was 3 World Cups, all of which had historic final games, and the arrival of club competitions. It was just a defining time, really, as the game was getting ever more increasing, obviously moving into Europe, which English teams were not involved in. British teams were not involved with at the very start, of course, and it's just fascinating when it takes you through in terms of then it was Benfica and the great Bela Gutmann. So it really talks about the teams and also the great coaches as well. And just some great stories. And when you think of some of the great teams, Sabio, Benfica, then you've got Milan, Inter Milan, and then it moves into when Celtic, of course, the first British team to win it in Lisbon Lions.
Yeah, Lisbon Lions, yeah.
Before Manchester United, of course, famously at Wembley.
Yeah.
And it refers back, of course, that terrible tragedy in Munich 10 years before that, etc. It's just a whole mixture of, how football used to be, and it's wonderful. And I love the way, of course, it's about the champions of the Europe as well. So not like the Champions League, which is not the Champions League, if you get my drift, Paul.
Yeah, it's, Champions League, it isn't the Champions. Back in those days, European Cup, it was the Champions, and champions were competing in not a league but a cup of Europe, and there's a number of those books that give some great stories, and in particular the story of Bela Gutmann and Benfica. I love that one. He went for a pay rise, they wouldn't give it, so he cursed them. And they haven't won the European Cup since. So, and then of course El Grande, Inter. Was so prominent in the 60s. Then when you look at the 70s, dominated by early doors, the Dutch with Feyenoord in 70, then 71, 72, 73 Ajax, and then 3 years on top of that, the great Bayern Munich, inspired by the great Gerd Müller, who's just recently had a statue erected outside the Allianz Stadium. So, just some great sides, and football competitions were won by a scattering of clubs back in those days. Of course, you can almost name who's going to be in the semi-finals today because of the money that's involved in football. So, a great start there. And of course, Europe is in the news because we've just witnessed the latest round of Champions Leagues, and they look as though they're going to change it before Euro 28, don't they? And you're going to have a European Super League. So watch your space. It's an ever increasing circle, I believe, not a decreasing circle, as a TV programme would suggest. Yeah,
and he touches on that. And also in his introduction, he talks about, again, like I mentioned about the early stages of football and with the FA Cup and things like that. And then he bookends it how football's changing and the reach of football and the global and the TV and how it's changed in terms of how people watch and enjoy the beautiful game.
Absolutely.
With various different guises. So fascinating book, great book, and it's his first book as well, and it's a cracking start for a first book. So I must say, so well done, Gavin.
And who's published that book?
I think it's pretty much it's called Speyburn Road Media. They're quite an independent, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So
nice.
It says on the back he's got his www.gavinhmcphee.com. So it might be I'm guessing it's self-published. So well done to him because it's a cracking looking book as well. So it's a good feel to it, and it's a good chunk of the book. A good 260 odd pages.
Have you read it all?
So. I haven't read through it, I must admit. I'm a bit one of these. Sometimes I tend to skip through it. I will go read through all of it. I have skipped through it. But I will take time out to read it properly. So, I always just, if I'm honest, at first I'll have a glance over it, pick through bits. Do you know what I mean? So, There's no pictures in it, though.
Just look at the pictures.
That's it. So, no, cracking book, that one. Shall I move on to the next one then? So
you carry on. As I say, you're the lead.
I'll move into October then.
Yep. Oh, but before you do start in October, what is the best month to bring a book out, in your opinion?
Wow. Yeah, well, it's funny you should say that. October. Now, it's always the busiest time because it's that Christmas.
It took a lifetime to find the person you want to marry. Finding the perfect engagement ring is a lot easier. At BlueNile.com, you can find or design the ring you've always dreamed of with help from Blue Nile's jewelry experts who are on hand 24/7 to answer questions, and the ease and convenience of shopping online. For a limited time, get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more with code LISTEN at BlueNile.com. That's $50 off with code LISTEN at BlueNile.com.
Building a business may feel like a big jump, but OnDeck Small Business Loans can help keep you afloat. With lines of credit up to $100,000 and term loans up to $250,000, OnDeck lets you choose the loan that's right for your business. As a top-rated online small business lender, OnDeck's team of loan advisors can help you find the right business loan to fit your needs. Visit OnDeck.com for more information. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
Up to Christmas, and that's why. And I've never seen so many come out, I must admit. But that's I think there's two things happen there. I think there's the reading has got more popular. There's no doubt about it. There's lots of things that I see as the reasons why with COVID and things like that, and people had more time at home. And then the second reason, it's just the quality of football writing. Yeah. It's massively increased, and I think people realise as well. There's so many different stories you could. Like I put on the website, you've got books around the history of football, about its grounds, about its shirts. Yeah. You know, there's so many different genres and so many great stories of individuals, of players, etc. But October is the time if you're going to bring a book out, and then probably the other busiest time is probably around about April. But it seems to, around about that period as well. But round about now, it certainly gets hotter. You don't see many books come out in December.
No, they've missed the boat, haven't they, literally?
Yeah, absolutely. The next one I was going to mention, this is a guy that's contributed to ourselves as well at My Football Books. He's done a couple of book reviews for us. He's an author called Callum McFadden. And his book's called Behind the Curtain of the Beautiful Game. Okay. It's a collection of short stories taking you closer to characters and the charm of football across the globe. So I followed Callum for a while on Twitter. So this is out published through Morgan Lawrence Publishing Services.
Oh, got you.
Published quite a few recently. So
they have.
But a great chap. He always comes across really well whenever I've liaise with him as well, and this is his first ever book, and it's one of those things. I've never wrote a book, and he puts in here about it's one of his bucket lists. Let's say tick it off, and he's got his real love for football. He talks about he's very open as well, because the profits from the book go to a mental health charity called Man on in the Clyde. Okay. And he talks about the reasons why he's done that, because he's had his ups and downs in his life. He had struggled with bouts of depression when he lost his father when he was just 14. And the stories he then comes out with, because he's the area he talks with footballers. You've got the likes of John McGovern, Willie Morgan, Sammy McElroy, and then he goes to managers. He's got a great chapter in here. We did an interview with Craig Browne as well, sadly before he passed away in the COVID times, and it's quite touching in there as well. He talks about how it was, I think it was over a Zoom, and he was expecting probably 15 minutes chat with Craig Browne, something like that, but it went on for 3 hours.
It's amazing,
it was amazing. It just didn't. He had so much time for Callum and just talk to him, and he actually puts in the first part of his book. He dedicates part of it to him. So, but it's a great mixture, and he also talks to people off the field. Like Johnny Owen, you heard Johnny Owen on
Forest Director.
Yeah. So there's short stories of Johnny Owen as well. So it's a right mixture of people, it really is. So lovely, set of short stories. So well done, Callum. So nice little book, that one. It only come out on. Well, no, I think it only come out yesterday as we're talking. So that's 5th of October.
And all these books are on your socials. So, guys, if you want to look at them, they're all on Andy's. Because this is it. We're promoting books that people are either sending you or you're just promoting on your site. So that's the easiest way to get your book spoken about, promoted. I guess that's what we do in a fashion. We don't go into them, from cover to cover and speak at great lengths. We mention the books, but interact with Andy, send Andy your books, and engage with Andy, and then we talk about it on the podcast.
Hopefully gives you a bit of flavour on this podcast, because to talk about all 40 books, we'd certainly be going well over an hour, wouldn't we, Paul, if we were to do that in any more detail.
We've almost done 2.5, 3 hours on some of our podcasts. We do need to squeeze it down to an hour every month, and that's what we're aiming to do. So what you got next, mate?
Next one, I'm going to go back to September. As I said, I'll go to and from. This is sticking with another book that came out from Morgan Lawrence Publishing Services. Like I say, they've been in a bit of a role at the moment. And this is a book called Game of Two Hearts, My Life in Football and Beyond. My guy,
John Brindley.
It's an autobiography. No, it's Mark O'Brien, his name is.
But John Brindley wrote it, didn't he?
Oh, sorry, with John Brindley. Spot on, that's it. So Mark O'Brien, he became one of Derby County's youngest ever footballers at just the age of 16. And he talks about when his life was turned upside down because he faced heart surgery. No symptoms whatsoever. It was just discovered following a routine health check. So it's just about his life, and he goes from there. It was Nigel Clough that was manager at the time at Derby County, and then he later went on to move to Newport County, where he became a bit of a legend at Newport County because he scored a bit of an iconic goal. I do love a bit, actually. There's a photo in this. It just reminded me as I said that. He's got photos in the middle, and he says when he first signed for Newport County, he didn't even know Newport was in Wales. So he had no idea when.
I mean, to be fair, there are two Newports.
Yeah, true. Yes, yeah. But he scored a last gasp goal which saved the side from relegation from the Football League, and then he captained them to an FA Cup run before finally his career came to an end. During COVID, I believe. So, it's his story, about his career. And he also played for Motherwell, Luton, Southport, and a mixture of others. But, again, one of these, players, Mark O'Brien's not a name I'm overly familiar with.
No.
But, again, it's getting his story out there and sharing it. And they've always got, stories about his, heart surgery, etc. It's just what it, going through all of that when you're starting out your football career and carrying on and just, doing the best you got with what you've got.
Absolutely. So, John Brindley also wrote Give Me the Ball by Terry Curran.
We did.
One of our podcast partners, the great TC. So, John Brindley, I've had a few conversations with John. Top man and really, really good author as well. So, check that book out. What we got next, mate?
Excellent. Well, book's coming up then. This is it's just come out. It's just come out, I think, as of yesterday. It's a revised and updated version of one of my top 20 favourite books of all time. So that's called Fergie Rises.
Okay.
It's by a guy called Michael Grant, and it basically focuses on Sir Alex Ferguson and his time at Aberdeen.
Yep.
He retired in 2013, wasn't it? But at that time, when he took over at Aberdeen, I think he'd just been recently sacked by St Mirren, and he was already like a divisive figure. He had a bit of a reputation for trouble, a lot to prove, etc. But what he went on to achieve there, was incredible. With, of course, he won the Winners' Cup, wasn't it then?
Yes, he did.
In Gothenburg, if I remember rightly. But the book
Eric
itself
Black scored the winner, didn't he, that day?
That sounds about right. Yeah, yeah. But it's brilliant book. It's a retelling of how his time then. So it's been revised. I've not seen it. I've not read it yet, so I don't know how it differs, I must admit, from when it first came out. Was that about 10 years ago?
Yeah,
but Michael Grant, yeah.
Because the thing is, when you're revising it, it's like there's not much that's changed, is there?
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what he's added to it, I must admit. So, but if he's added to it, it's a great book anyway. So, again, backstories of some of these managers. But, everyone thinks obviously it's Manchester United, but before that and what he achieved at Aberdeen was pretty special as well.
Absolutely.
And then if I move on then, so I'm going to pull it back again. I've got one more from Morgan Lawrence Publishing. As you can tell, they sent me a few books. This one's Sean Teal, Here, There and Everywhere, The Good, the Bad and Everything in Between. So if you remember Sean Teal, he played, I like it actually in this book. I like these books at the back where they actually put their stats around the career. Right. So he played at Villa mainly. So during 1991-95, 181 appearances. Sean Teal made.
Good centre half for Villa. Big Ron bought him, didn't he? Played for Ron in those glory days. Didn't he partner Paul McGrath?
I think he did. Yeah, it must be around about that time. Yeah.
And I can't remember. I don't know whether... No, it was Big Hugo. Because, Villa had Big Hugo. They had Sean Teal. They had Paul McGrath. Then Gareth Southgate. Come on. Villa have always had really, really good players. Villa usually have bought players off Quality Street. And my mob, Birmingham, have bought them from the gutter. That's a fundamental difference between the two teams in Birmingham. But, Sean. And Rob Carlos... a pal of mine has written the book. Rob's got a few books that have come out recently. The Manchester United book about the treble. We've done a podcast with Rob. So go to wherever you access your podcast and go to SRB Media and scroll down and you'll see a podcast with myself and Rob Carlos talking about his book when Manchester United won the treble. And he's also got a book coming out, I think it's next year now, about the League Cup. So I'm very much looking forward to that coming out. Because if you remember, a few podcasts back,
we've mentioned it.
Yeah, this is episode number 14 tonight. But, quite a few months ago. And I said to you, I like the noises. It sounds a bit like the Darren Farley when he does the Steven Gerrard. I love the way he does that. But I said, is there a book about the League Cup? Because there's many, many, many books about the FA Cup, but nothing really about the League Cup. And Rob has cornered that market, and the book will be out next year. So very much looking forward to that. So well done, Rob Carlos. And
there's a reach from our podcast, isn't there? So there seems to be a bit of a reach of our podcast. It seems to be we drop ideas and people come up with suddenly books. Because the one I'm going to come on to is Ian Storey-Moore, and I remember you mentioned many time ago that he had no intention of writing a book, did he? So
no, he didn't
until now.
Well, if you go on to Guy's SRB Media, I tend to go on Spotify or Apple. Them are the two sources of how I access my podcast, or our Patreon site. And I've done a podcast and I'm not going to tell you how it come about, but it's a great story of how the book come about. Because when I first hooked up with Ian Storey-Moore, I said to him, Ian, you're an absolute legend, and particularly at Forest. Before Brian took over at Forest, you played in the most successful team that Forest have ever had. And he said, well, Gabbie, all football players, or majority of football players, they're so modest, and it's like, well, who'd want to read my book? I mean, everybody would. but it didn't want to. And then if you go on to, you'll hear the story, and it's a great story of why Ian Storey-Moore then decided to write that book, and it is just absolutely fantastic, and it just shows the modesty of the fella.
Incredible.
And I'm going to do another podcast with Ian, so we've done that one of how the book come about. We've also done the My 70s, the Legends of the 70s, and we're going to be doing another podcast within Storymore. We've done Game of My Life when he talked about the iconic game that Forest beat Everton in 1967. And I didn't realise until last night, and this is why I love doing all these things, because I learned so much. I didn't realise in August 1968, when Nottingham Forest played Leeds United, there was a big fire at the City Ground. Now,
was that 78, was that?
68.
1968. 68, yeah.
68, yeah. No, sorry if I did, I apologise. But it was 1968, so Storymore probably played in that game. So be interesting to, when I link up again with Storymore, because we're going to do my starting 11, with all the players he's ever played with, what his starting 11 would be. So and I can't speak any more highly of Storymore. What a lovely man.
If I can interject that, I listened to your podcast with it, and I think you've wrapped it up perfectly. He's such a modest guy, isn't he? And I love the story he said about how the two guys approached him about the book, and just it's just so good. Who would want to hear my story? It's just just extraordinary, isn't it?
And he is one that I will just at any time text him, and if he's not busy, because I always text former professionals, because you never know what they're doing. They've got busy lives, etc.
And to listen to the rest of this podcast, head on over to www.patreon.com/SRB Media. Thank you.